A brief about the stages of the President of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, from birth to the end of her term and her presidency of the country. Part 1. Prime Minister of Bangladesh from June 1996 to July 2001 and again from January 2009 to August 2024. She is the daughter of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the founding father and first president of Bangladesh. Having served for a combined total of over 20 years, she is the longest-serving prime minister in the history of Bangladesh. Her premiership ended in self-imposed exile following a series of violent protests in 2024 at Kama. As the autocratic regime of Hussein Mohammad Ershad came to an end, Hasina, then leader of the Awami League, AL, lost the 1991 election to Khaleda Zia, with whom she had collaborated against Ershad. As leader of the opposition, Hasina accused Zia's Bangladesh Nationalist Party, BNP, of electoral dishonesty and boycotted parliament, which was followed by violent demonstrations and political turmoil. Zia resigned to a caretaker government, followed by Hasina becoming prime minister after the June 1996 election. While the country began to experience economic growth and a reduction in poverty, it remained in political turmoil during her first term, which ended in July 2001, with Hasina being succeeded by Zia following her victory. This was the first full 5-year term for a Bangladeshi prime minister since it became an independent country in 1971. During the 2006 to 2008 political crisis, Hasina was detained on extortion charges. After her release from jail, she won the 2008 election. In 2014, she was re-elected for a third term in an election that was boycotted by the BNP and criticized by international observers. In 2017, after nearly 1 million Rohingya entered the country, fleeing genocide in Myanmar, Hasina received credit and praise for giving them refuge and assistance. She won a fourth and fifth term after the 2018 and 2024 elections, which was marred by violence and widely criticized as being fraudulent. It is now widely considered that under her premiership, Bangladesh experienced democratic backsliding. Human Rights Watch documented widespread enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings under her government. Numerous politicians and journalists were systematically and judicially punished for challenging her views. In 2021, Reporters Without Borders gave a negative assessment of Hasina's media policy for curbing press freedom in Bangladesh since 2014. Domestically, Hasina has been criticized as being too close to India, often at the cost of Bangladesh's sovereignty. She is seen as a manifestation of India's interference in Bangladeshi politics, which the critics described as the main source of Hasina's power. Hasina was among Time's 100 most influential people in the world in 2018, and was listed as being one of the 100 most powerful women in the world by Forbes in 2015, 2018, and 2022. She was the world's longest-serving female head of government. Hasina was born on September 28, 1947 to the Bengali Muslim Sheikh family of Tanjipura in East Bengal. Her father was Bengali nationalist leader Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and her mother was Begum Fazila Tunisa Mujib. She has Iraqi Arab ancestry through both her paternal and maternal sides of family, and her clan were direct descendants of Muslim preacher Sheikh Abdul Awal Darwish of Baghdad, who had arrived in Bengal in the late Mughal era. Hasina grew up in Tanjipura during her early childhood under the care of her mother and grandmother. When the family moved to Dhaka, they initially lived in the neighborhood of Segan Bajika. When Hasina's father became a government minister in 1954, the family lived on 3 Minto Road. In the 1950s, her father also worked in the Alpha Insurance Company, aside from his political activities. In the 1960s, the family moved into a home built by her father on Road 32 in Dhanmondi. In many interviews and speeches, Hasina talked about growing up while her father was held as a political prisoner by the Pakistani government. In one interview, she remarked that, for instance, after the United Front ministry was elected in 1954, and we were living in number 3 Minto Road, one day, my mother told us that father had been arrested the night before. Then we used to visit him in jail and we always realized that he was put in jail so often because he loved the people. Hasina and her siblings had very little time to spend with their father because of his preoccupation with politics. Sheikh Hasina attended primary school in her village of Tanjipura. When her family moved to Dhaka, she attended the Azimpur Girls' School and Begum Badranisa Girls' College. She enrolled for a bachelor's degree at Eton College. She was elected as the vice president of the Students' Union in Eton College between 1966 and 1967. In 1967, Hasina married Emma Wazd Mia, who was a Bengali nuclear scientist with a doctorate in physics from Durham. Hasina studied Bengali literature at Dhaka University, from where she graduated in 1973. Hasina lived in Rokeya Hall, which was founded in 1938 as the women's dormitory of Dhaka University, and later named after feminist Begum Rokeya. She was involved in the politics of the Students' League and was elected as the General Secretary of the Women's Unit in Rokeya Hall. Except for her husband, children and sister Sheikh Hasina, Hasina's entire family was murdered during the August 15, 1975 Bangladeshi coup d'état which saw the assassination of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Hasina, Wazd and Rihanna were visiting Europe at the time of the assassination. They took refuge in the house of the Bangladeshi ambassador to West Germany, before taking up an offer of political asylum from Prime Minister Indira Gandhi of India. The surviving members of the family lived in exile in New Delhi, India for 6 years. Hasina was barred from entering Bangladesh by the military government of Ziaur Rahman. After she was elected president of the Awami League on February 16, 1981, Hasina returned home on May 17, 1981 and received a welcome from thousands of Awami League supporters. While living in exile in India, Hasina was elected president of the Awami League, AL, in 1981. The AL has been described as a left-of-center party. Under martial law, Hasina was in and out of detention throughout the 1980s. In 1984, she was put under house arrest in February and again in November. In March 1985, she was put under house arrest for another 3 months. Hasina and the AL participated in the 1986 Bangladeshi general election held under President Hussein Mohammad Ershad. She served as the leader of the parliamentary opposition in 1986 to 1987. She led an 8-party alliance as opposition against Ershad. Hasina's decision to take part in the election had been criticized by her opponents, since the election was held under martial law, and the other main opposition group boycotted the poll. However, her supporters maintained that she used the platform effectively to challenge Ershad's rule. Ershad dissolved the parliament in December 1987 when Hasina and her Awami League resigned in an attempt to call for a fresh general election to be held under a neutral government. During November and December in 1987, a mass uprising happened in Dhaka and several people were killed, including Noor Hossain, an Awami League activist and support of Hasina. Her party, along with the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, BNP, under Khalida Zia, continued to work to restore democratically elected government, which they achieved after a constitutional referendum returning the country to a parliamentary form of government. The subsequent parliamentary general election in 1991 was won by the BNP. After several years of autocratic rule, widespread protests and strikes had paralyzed the economy. Government officers refused to follow orders and resigned. Members of the Bangladesh Rifles laid down their weapons instead of firing on protesters and curfew was openly violated. Hasina worked with Khalida Zia in organizing opposition to Ershad. A huge mass protest in December 1990 ousted Ershad from power when he resigned in favor of his vice president, Justice Shahabuddin Ahmed, the Chief Justice of the Bangladesh Supreme Court. The caretaker government, headed by Ahmed, administered a general election for the parliament. The Bangladesh Nationalist Party led by Khalida Zia won a general majority, and Hasina's Awami League emerged as the largest opposition party. Of the 3 constituencies Hasina contested, she lost in 2 and won in 1. Accepting defeat, she offered her resignation as the party president but stayed on at the request of party leaders. Politics in Bangladesh took a decisive turn in 1994, after a by-election in Maghera II, held after the death of the Member of Parliament for that constituency, a member of Hasina's party. The Awami League had expected to win back the seat, but the BNP candidate won through rigging and manipulation, according to the neutral observer who came to witness the election. Hasina led the Bangladesh Awami League in boycotting the parliament from 1994. The Awami League, AL, with other opposition parties, demanded that the next general elections be held under a neutral caretaker government, and that provision for caretaker governments to manage elections be incorporated in the constitution. The ruling Bangladesh Nationalist Party, BNP, refused to act on these demands. Opposition parties launched an unprecedented campaign, calling strikes for weeks on end. The government accused them of destroying the economy, while the opposition countered that the BNP could resolve the issue by acceding to their demands. In late 1995, the members of parliament of the AL and other parties resigned en masse. Parliament completed its 5-year term and the February 1996 general election was held. The election was boycotted by all major parties except the ruling BNP, who won all the seats in the parliament as a result. Hasina described the election as a farce. The new parliament, composed almost entirely of BNP members, amended the constitution to create provisions for a caretaker government, CTG. The June 1996 general election was held under a neutral caretaker government headed by retired Chief Justice Mohammad Habibur Rahman. The AL won 146 seats, a plurality, but fell short of a simple majority. Khalida Zia, leader of the BNP who won 104 seats, denounced the results and alleged vote rigging. This was in contrast with the neutral observers who said that the election was free and fair. Hasina served her first term as Prime Minister of Bangladesh from June 1996 to July 2001. She signed the 30-year water-sharing treaty with India governing the Ganges. Her administration repealed the Indemnity Act, which granted immunity from prosecution to the killers of Sheikh Mujib. Her government opened up the telecommunications industry to the private sector, which until then was limited to government-owned companies. In December 1997, Hasina's administration signed the Chittagong Hill-Tracts Peace Accord, ending the insurgency in the Chittagong division, for which Hasina won the UNESCO Peace Prize. Her government established the Ashrayan 1 project while bilateral relations with neighboring states improved. Hasina's government completed the Banga Bandhu Bridge mega-project in 1998. In 1999, the government started the new Industrial Policy, NIP, which aimed to strengthen the private sector and encourage growth. The Hasina government implemented some reforms to different sectors of the economy, which resulted in the country attaining an average of 5.5% GDP growth. The consumer price index remained at 5%, lower than other developing states who experienced 10% inflation. The fifth five-year plan, 1997 to 2002, of the government placed an emphasis on poverty alleviation programs which provided credit and training to unemployed youths and women. Food grain production increased from 19 million tons to 26.5 million tons while the poverty rate reduced. A housing fund was established to provide fiscal assistance to those homeless as a result of river erosion. The government launched the Ekti Bari Ekti Commerce Scheme, which accentuated the incomes of the poorer segments of society through household farming. I stop at this point today. Soon we will publish Part 2. I hope I added something to you. You enjoyed the last few minutes. We will meet with you soon. Thank you for watching.